everyone. You know, we often think of history as just a bunch of dates and battles, but the truth is, the raw, physical earth beneath our feet is really the ultimate author of human history. Today, in this explainer, we're mapping out how geography fundamentally forged the destiny, the culture, and the boundaries of the Indian subcontinent. To get a sense of the sheer scale of this place, just listen to this ancient verse from the Vishnu Purana. The country that lies north of the ocean and south of the snowy mountains is called Bharata. Thousands of years ago, long before satellites or modern cartography, ancient people already understood the massive, naturally defined borders of their civilization. I mean, they were mapping a world that stretched from the deepest oceans all the way up to the highest peaks on Earth. All right, let's jump right into Section 1, Boundaries of Ancient India. Okay, let's dive into this. When we say ancient India or the Indian subcontinent, we're talking about a historical footprint that absolutely dwarfs our modern political lines. We are looking at an area encompassing parts of modern-day Afghanistan, Pakistan, Nepal, Bhutan, Myanmar, Bangladesh, China, and Sri Lanka. These ancient borders were drawn by formidable mountains and vast seas, not by treaties, creating this incredibly vast, interconnected world. Because this landmass was just so unbelievably massive, early regional identities naturally split based on, well, geographic realities. Up in the north, you had Aryavarta, which means the land of the Aryans. But as you moved south, down into the peninsula, the ancient texts refer to it as Dakshinapatha, simply meaning the southern land. And this wasn't just some arbitrary political divide, it was a literal, physical division created by the continent's towering central mountain ranges, like the Vindhyas, which fundamentally shaped two totally distinct spheres of cultural evolution. Moving right along to Section 2, Origin of India's Names. Let's start with the epic mythological origins. Have you ever wondered where names like Bharata, Bharatakanda, and Bharatavarsha actually come from? They all stem from one legendary figure mentioned in the Mahabharata. They're derived from King Bharata, the son of Dushyanta and Shakuntala. It's a brilliant example of how ancient people used shared legendary narratives to essentially glue a vast geographic area together under a single cultural identity. Now, what's really fascinating here is the term Jambudvipa. This name pops up all across Hindu, Buddhist, and Jain traditions. These ancient scholars viewed the land south of the Himalayas as a completely independent island continent, literally one of the 7 great continents of the world. And they named it Jambudvipa because they visualized its physical shape as resembling a jambu, or a rose apple fruit. It's just a wonderfully poetic visual metaphor for such a giant landmass, don't you think? But as foreign traders and, eventually, invaders started showing up, the subcontinent got rebranded, and it all centered around its most prominent, life-giving geographic feature, the Indus River. The Greeks called the river Indos, which eventually evolved into the word India, a term they used to describe the entire landmass right down to the south. Later on, during the medieval period, the Persians arrived. They pronounced the Indus River as the Hindu River, so the land beyond it naturally became Hindustan, which was later abbreviated to just Hind. Let's head north for Section 3, Himalayas and Northern Plains. You see, geography offers protection, sure, but sometimes it leaves the back door wide open. The Himalayas acted as this colossal, impenetrable shield. They completely separated the subcontinent from the rest of Asia and blocked out those freezing northern winds. But look at the stark contrast here. To the northwest, valleys and passes like the Khyber and Bolan passes served as literal open doors. While these passes were incredible channels for trade and cultural exchange with the West, they were also dangerously vulnerable choke points, exposing the land to constant, relentless waves of invasion. And this brilliantly illustrates the flip side of those mighty mountains. The Himalayas didn't just act as a shield, they literally offered life. They gave birth to massive perennial rivers that flowed down and deposited rich silt, creating the incredibly fertile northern plains. These plains weren't just good for farming, they became the literal cradle of civilization. This exact geographic feature is what allowed the magnificent Indus Valley and Vedic civilizations to sprout up and flourish. You know, there's actually a direct cause and effect relationship between fertile dirt and high thinking. Think about it. Because these northern plains produced such incredible agricultural surplus and prosperity, people's basic needs for survival were easily met. When a society isn't constantly stressing over where its next meal is coming from, it finally has the time and energy to look up at the stars. This geographic wealth provided the essential foundation for the profound spiritual and philosophical growth that ancient India is so famous for. Let's shift gears and look at Section 4, Deccan Plateau and Coastline. There's a really stark, fascinating juxtaposition happening here. Up in the north, that easy, fertile life allowed for deep spiritual and philosophical pursuits. But if you look at the western deserts or the rugged mountains like the Aravalli and Sahyadri and the dense forests of the southern Deccan Plateau, you find highly demanding, unforgiving environments. And tough environments breed tough people. The harsh geography of these regions directly forged deeply resilient, hardworking, and fiercely warlike cultures. It's incredible to see how geography quite literally dictates character. Then, further south, we hit the oceans. Historically, these massive bodies of water started out as essentially giant barrier fences, completely isolating the southern tip of the continent. But human ingenuity eventually turned that geographic limitation right on its head. As maritime technology improved over time, those barrier fences transformed into massive, vital global highways, seamlessly connecting the subcontinent's rich coastal ports to the rest of the known world. Which brings us to Section 5, Diverse Geography and Culture. So the sheer diversity of the Indian subcontinent, it's not just some random historical accident. It's a direct biological and cultural result of its geography. Because the land is broken up into so many varied geographic pockets, you've got mountains, plains, deserts, deep forests, it naturally nurtured completely different human groups. Dravidian, Altaic, and Mongoloid races all thrived in their respective geographic niches. And that resulted in the incredibly rich tapestry of distinct languages and cultures we still see today. So the crucial takeaway here is this. Whether you're looking at the Ganges up north or the Kaveri down south, these vital river plains made the region an absolute agrarian powerhouse since antiquity. Agriculture has truly been the unbroken spine of this land. The sheer ability to grow immense amounts of food is what ultimately dictated the rise, the power, and the inevitable fall of every single religious, commercial, and political dynasty in the subcontinent's history. Let's move to our final synthesis, Section 6, Mineral Wealth and Architecture. Let's see how this builds step by step, literally. First, the geography offered abundant raw materials right under their feet: sandstone, granite, and marble. Second, wealthy rulers leveraged those specific local materials to construct their grand palaces, heavily fortified forts, and intricate sculptures. And third, they looked at the massive, immovable rocks in the hills themselves and decided to literally carve breathtaking cave temples straight into the living earth. It's like the architecture itself is just a natural extension of the land's geology. Wrapping up our spatial tour, we have to look at the sky above all this terrain. Excluding the freezing extremes of the high mountains and the scorching deserts, the subcontinent was blessed with a highly favorable tropical climate. This meant abundant, predictable rainfall that supported incredibly rich flora and fauna. The overall environment wasn't just livable, it was perfectly tailored to support comprehensive, explosive human development. We've seen how rivers, mountains, and oceans acted as the ultimate architects of ancient India, forging its wealth, its incredibly diverse cultures, and its very borders. Geography really was destiny. But I want to leave you with this provocative thought to chew on. If natural geography wrote our history and drew our borders in ancient times, well, in an age of digital networks, global trade, and air travel, what will determine our boundaries in the future? Thank you so much for exploring this analysis with me today. Keep questioning the world around you.